good evening, wherever you are on this planet. My name is Jan Graat. I'm speaking from Amsterdam, Netherlands. And today I'm going to talk to you about conversion, and especially about conversion using FrameMaker in a way that doesn't stop all of your production for a long time while you're moving everything into a new system. This is why I chose a title. Everybody knows in Formula One, it's essential that you keep those cars stopping as short as possible. I mean, Red Bull has the world record for a pit stop where they change all four tires in 1.88 seconds. That is just unbelievable. Why is there so much work on getting the pit stop so fast? Because when you're not moving, your competition is. And that's exactly the same as in the business world. If you're taking a lot of time to move your content into a structured format and into a structured system, etc., and all the time you cannot produce publications, you cannot produce manuals for your products, etc., your competition is getting ahead of you. So it's essential to find a process that will be as non-intrusive as possible. That's what I'm going to show you today. First, a couple of words about myself. As you can see, I'm Dutch. I'm sometimes known as the geek philosopher. I studied physics, psychology, philosophy, and I taught myself programming. Basically, everything with a P, you could say. I'm also known sometimes as the frame tamer. I've been working with FrameMaker since more than 30 years, right from the beginning. And after writing lots of manuals for 10 or 15 years, I got a little bored and I taught myself programming, especially in the scripting language that is part of the FrameMaker product. So I basically make FrameMaker do stuff that were not included in the product out of the box. In fact, you can see my middle initials. My parents knew what I was going to do later in life, because, hey, I was made to do this kind of work, right? So let's talk about the topic for today. Every company that has been existing for a little bit more than just a couple of years, so every company that's not a startup has legacy documentation. And the legacy documentation has received a lot of attention in the past. And even though you didn't write your stuff in a structured manner in a standard like DITA, it is still valuable. It is information. There's been a lot of reviewing. There's been a lot of work to create documents that are correct for your products. So they represent value. Now, legacy documents do, sometimes, well, actually very often, in the FrameMaker world, these are called unstructured documents. And I tend to disagree because there is structure in your documents. The structure is just, it is implicit. It is implicit. It is implied by the formatting that you apply to those sentences. If I look at the first sentence, then it's very clear to me as a user that that is a title. You do this by applying a format tag, heading 1 or title or whatever the format tags are in your organization. You choose the formats to indicate what the intended structure of your content should be and how it's going to be read by your user. So we will always need the formatting because that's the only thing that the user of your documentation has to figure out the structure of your document. So there is no such thing as unstructured documentation, unless if everything is in normal and there's no change in formatting whatsoever. That is truly unstructured. But everything else is format-based structure. So it is still structured documentation, but the formatting is the way that the structure is indicated. And what we do in conversion is we formalize the structure. This is my image of an XML document, because obviously structure in our world is based on XML. Everything today is based on XML. Even Word is XML, although I tend to call that XXXXML or OBSML because there's a lot of stuff in it that is not really required. If we look under the hood of an XML document, then you see a very clear organization. You see that there is a topic which has a title, there's a body, and inside the body you have paragraphs. The location of an element inside of this structure and the name of the element, if it's a P or a list item or whatever else you have in your document, that together determines what it will look like. So in the end, it may still look exactly the same, but now it is defined by the structure in your document and not by the, it's not the other way around, like the structure is inferred by um, the formatting. Now, to create DITA is different from how you were used to work, and it may require a lot of time, especially if you have to create DITA from scratch. You don't want to rewrite everything that you have. And the problem with companies who have a lot of legacy documentation is that they would like to take their documents with them into the DITA world. I assume that your documentation has been created in a sensible way, and there's a lot of it. If your company has been in existence for a long time and you keep producing similar kinds of products, then that documentation, that legacy documentation, is too valuable to leave behind. So you're faced with a tough choice between, well, basically, you could send everything over to a professional company that does conversion to DITA. I'm not sure if they will do the best possible job because they don't know your content as well as you do. So, and it will still take time. They also need time to do it. They might need less time than you if you do it yourself. Then you will really spend a long time to convert everything into DITA before before you can then continue to work. And as I mentioned in the beginning during the title slide of my presentation, this is exactly the tough choice that I want to help companies to avoid by taking documents one at a time and converting a document whenever it comes up for editing anyway, because your content will change. If your products change, if there's some new options in the product, etc., you need to add those new options to the topics, to the manuals. So, and if your manuals are created, in sections, then one section will come up for editing uh, at a time. It's not that you start editing the entire book in one go. So whenever there's a file that needs editing anyway, because an option has changed or something has been added or something has been removed, that's when, instead of opening the document in your old unstructured authoring environment, like in unstructured FrameMaker, instead of that, you open it after first converting it. And this is where FrameMaker has a unique capability that I have not seen in any other authoring system. In fact, FrameMaker is not just authoring, it's also a publication engine. So from a FrameMaker book, you can produce PDFs or CHUM or more modern web help kinds of files, HTML pages, whatever you want to do, you can create from a FrameMaker book, which contains a bunch of FrameMaker files. Normally, your manuals will be separated into separate files and organized in the FrameMaker book file. Now, what we do in conversion, the way that I'm approaching conversion is one at a time. So you take a FrameMaker file, and before you do the editing, you do a very simple, straightforward, fast conversion process. Converting one single file doesn't really take more than, if it's a well-structured file, a well-organized file, I should say, then it just takes a couple of seconds. If it's less well organized, you may have to adjust the content a little bit to make it fit to the structure that you have chosen for your structured documents. But in both cases, it's open the file, convert it to the XML standard that you chose. In our case, that would be DITA. And then it will still be in the same book, because FrameMaker doesn't care if there is a mix of structured and unstructured content in the book. It can still publish that to PDF, to webhelp, to HTML5, whatever you want to have. So, and this is a truly unique capability of FrameMaker. You can work with a mix of structured and unstructured documents for as long as you need, until at a certain point in time you will have all of your content converted to DITA. And then at that point, you can still use the book if you want to. If there's no reason to move into a component content management system, then hey, why not keep it this way? But if you do want to move it into a component content management system, this is the moment when you can move everything into a completely different system, and that will just take very little time before you can then move on to another type of publication engine. So what happens in this kind of non-intrusive conversion process, what needs to happen, of course, is that after conversion, your content should still look the same. This is a very important requirement for making it work. If you work one document at a time, the document after conversion should be looking almost exactly the same as before. So here you see examples that I took from an old conversion project that I did for a customer who are in software development. So they have a bunch of files. There were lots of files there. Under the hood, this is what it looks like. So before, there is no structure because it is unstructured FrameMaker. And after that, there is a DITA structure in there. In fact, in this case, that's not DITA, that's a special kind of XML, but that will be the same for a DITA file. So it's like you take the formatting, you lift up the formatting and you move this structure inside it, and then the formatting depends on the structure instead of having been applied explicitly. While I was thinking about this, while I was creating these slides, I was reminded by a little clip I saw on YouTube a long time ago, which is a trick that we all know. Let's look at that trick for a couple of seconds. And basically everybody knows this trick. Maybe not everybody can do it, but everybody knows it. You pull the sheet out from under the stuff on the table, and everything stays. Basically, what we're doing in conversion is the reverse. There you go. Just imagine that the white sheet is your structure. You push it into the document, and now everything that is on top of that structure will be derived from the structure instead of having been applied explicitly. I'm sorry for the low resolution of this image, but I didn't want to keep it from you. So let's come back to the conversion process. I have indicated that your legacy documentation is not really unstructured, it is format based, right? So you have your formats applied, and hopefully you have applied them via format tags. If you haven't, then you're in a bit of trouble, because then you will have to, then basically you will have to start applying format tags to everything before you can really do conversion, because the conversion relies on the formatting of your document, and it should be formalized. So you should always use format tags for paragraphs and for characters. Okay, so this is what the document looks like under the hood. You have heading 1, you have body, you have hyperlink for certain kinds of character styling, and you have bullet points, etc. Then these formats are written into a conversion table. This is a tool that is built into FrameMaker, the conversion table. But of course, you have to create that table. You have to tell FrameMaker, the conversion tool in FrameMaker, when you see this paragraph, heading 1, what do you do with it? Well, heading 1 becomes a title. And I put a qualifier so that later on I can wrap that title level 1 together with a body into a topic at that level 1. So I'm not going to go into all the details here, but this is basically what conversion in FrameMaker, what it looks like, how it works. So you have a conversion table that indicates this element should be wrapped into that, or this content, this paragraph form with that particular paragraph format should be wrapped into a particular element, and that element can then be wrapped into higher level elements. So together with the conversion table and the document, FrameMaker creates your structured document. And then, as I mentioned, the position of the text in that structure is now determining what your um, formatting looks like. And obviously, if you do it correctly, then that formatting will not be changed, except that now, if you move content around, it will change formatting depending on where it is in the structure. And that is exactly what we want to achieve. It becomes much easier to move your content around. You don't have to worry about changing the formatting anymore, because the formatting is derived from the structure. Now, if you do conversion of a whole bunch of documents, then this will work very nicely if your original content was either very simple, or at least it has been formatted in a very, very consistent way. So only in cases where there was, there's a slight inconsistency, like there's a paragraph before the first title, that's something that we will not be able to map to DITA. So you will have to do something about it. You might think that those exceptions are only, are few and far, far apart, but you can believe me, I've done dozens of conversion projects for lots and lots of customers, and they all claim to have very well structured content. Well, this is more like reality. There's so many exceptions that it is really hard to do conversion, to do optimal conversion by only using the tools that FrameMaker is offering you, the conversion table, because that conversion table relies on a well-structured content, because it can only do a certain number of things. It can only wrap content into an element and wrap multiple elements into higher level elements. It cannot move stuff around, etc. So to make the process much more effective, I'm using scripting. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm sometimes known as the frame tamer. I create all kinds of scripts to make FrameMaker do all kinds of stuff in an automated way. And with scripting, you can basically do anything you like to your content in an organized manner. It's a programming language, and you can get to any element in your content. You can do anything that FrameMaker can do, manually using the user interface. You can also create a script that does this automatically. So there's a whole bunch of scripts that I have created in the past years to get over common problems in the conversion process. Quite often, authors have attached images to a title, which is not a really good idea. The image should really be in a separate paragraph, because if it's attached to the title, then in DITA it will also end up in the title, and you want to have it in the body. So to prevent the image from appearing inside of a title in a DITA topic, I take the image anchor, take it out of the title, and move it into the body, into the next paragraph, an empty paragraph. It doesn't matter what kind of paragraph it is, as long as it's not inside the title. That would be a typical small script that just runs through all the files and determines if there is any image anchor inside the title. If there is, it creates a new empty paragraph behind the title and then puts the image anchor there. Those kinds of simple fix-ups for your content, and they can be lots of them. Every customer has their own typical, structural, I wouldn't say errors, but structural problems that they have when we start converting to DITA. So there's a lot of pre-processing going on. And then, of course, after doing the pre-processing, you have the conversion. I will show a little bit of this in a live demo after the next couple of slides, but I'm just talking you through the process right now. After the conversion is done, obviously, there's always some stuff that the conversion table cannot do in terms of moving stuff in the structure. Once it is structured, we can start moving it around. And this is done by post-processing, either by scripting again, or by a very powerful language that is named XSLT, or a method that's called XSLT, and that is based on XML. From XML, you can create any other kind of XML by using XSLT. So this is the third and essential step in my conversion process. Now, instead of having to call all of these functions one by one, which would be really complex and time-consuming, I've created a script that actually reads a configuration file to run a conversion pipeline, because every file you will have to do the same kinds of things. First, you have to check on those images in titles. Then you have to check if there's no empty rows in tables, etc., which mess up the result. All kinds of checks that you want to do, small scripts that you want to run in a certain order. All of that is defined in a pipeline. It's one XML file that describes exactly which steps need to be taken to do a full conversion. Then to configure that, of course, that should be easy, because you don't want to start doing all kinds of scripting, especially for every particular customer. So this is all described in an XML format, which describes what to do in what order. So these are just three parts of this configuration file that is interpreted by a script, and this is executed by the script. So it starts with removing empty table rows, moving image anchors, setting table row heights, etc. All kinds of things that are needed to optimize the result. Updating the conversion table is one of them. And then at a certain point, it will actually do the conversion. It will do the, that's the convert structure doc step that you see in the middle image. After that, it writes an XML file. That's an intermediate XML file, and that XML file is then transformed. You can see that on the right-hand side, you see an XSLT conversion XML to DITA. This is where the actual DITA is created. And the XSLT is much more powerful than any other tool, than the conversion table, or than any scripting that you can do. And it is very efficient. So after that is done, then it is written to a DITA file, and then at the end I rename it to FrameMaker to make the book still work with all the files, even though there's a mix of FrameMaker and DITA files in there. Which brings us to time to show you all of this in a short demo. For this demo, I chose to use the personal spaceship user guide that comes with Adobe FrameMaker. I have it opened here, and basically we're doing one file at a time, as I explained in my presentation. So let's open a simple file. This one, it just has a title and a bunch of paragraphs. Now, I start conversion by choosing the conversion menu inside of the SID. SID is for Smart Information Design, and I convert the document. Now, this is a very simple document, and I've already set up the conversion table and all the code that is needed to make the conversion walk through completely. So you see now on this side, we have a DITA file with a topic, a title, a body, and a bunch of paragraphs. So basically, this is all you need to do to files that are very simple. And you can see here on the left-hand side, I actually renamed the DITA file. So this is an actual DITA file. You can see that on the little icon right here. I renamed it to .fm so that the book still has the same files in it. And as I mentioned before, FrameMaker doesn't care if there's a mix of binary FrameMaker files and DITA files in a book. You can still publish this book without any changes. All the lists, all the generated lists, everything will still work. I'm not going to show you that right now because that would take too much time, but I'm going to continue with converting another chapter. I'm opening this chapter. This, as you can see here, this is a FrameMaker file. There is no structure here on this in this file yet. I can close this legal FM, and I'm going to do the same step here. So I pick the file, I go to convert document, and you will see that it stops at a certain point where it cannot proceed any further. This is a point where there is a problem that you need to solve. For various kinds of reasons, some elements may not convert correctly, and in this case, the problem is very simple. The top level element has not been applied by the conversion table for whatever reason. The top level element should be chapter, so I click on this, I change it into chapter, and then I can determine that the document is valid. So at this point, I can save the document, and I simply continue where it has left off. So I simply choose the same convert document function again, and it will save everything to XML. It converts to DITA. This message will show up because it only shows up in my demo because I didn't bother to correctly create all the DTDs, etc., that are needed. If I just ignore that message, it will still open up. And you can see here that we have a DITA file. This is a DITA base, so all the topics are, every heading here creates a new topic. So this is first topic, then you have a nested topic, etc. This is why I'm using the database DITA topic, so the generic DITA topic, a composite as they call it. And you can see here that all of the content is DITA, and if I click on validation, then you see this is actually valid DITA. And if you look through the file, you will see that all the formatting has been reapplied correctly. Now it's based on the DITA that is in the document instead of having the explicit format tags for paragraphs and for characters. And you can see this is pretty much, almost exactly the same as the original. There are some things that you still will have to solve, like here in this case, an image, the size of the image didn't come out, so you have to simply resize the image. And with that, small corrections will always have to be done in complex files. In this case, there's a video which cannot be represented by the DITA client, but this should still come out correctly when you decide to publish the book. And here on the left-hand side, you see now that there's not only the legal document is now structured, is now DITA, but also this general description. All the others are not yet. So again, the whole approach to the conversion process that I've created here is do this one by one. And the only thing you have to do is you choose this function, because this will start the pipeline and it will pick up where it left off after you have encountered any kind of problem in the conversion process. If you want to change the conversion table, you're not satisfied with the results of wrapping content into certain basic elements, you can manually make some changes to the conversion table. This is the first level of conversion where you wrap a paragraph into a basic element. And then in this second table, this is where the structure based on the basic elements, where the structure is created. So this is where you might want to make some changes to make your content into a better structure in DITA, map it to DITA in a better kind of way. Once you're done with this, once you have made changes to the conversion table, you simply save it and close it. And then the files that you have already converted, you can very easily revert to the original document. There is a function for that. Basically, before the conversion pipeline makes any changes to the document that would not be reversible, it creates a copy of the original document so that you can revert. Now you see there's no structure anymore, and you can redo the whole process with your improved conversion table. Obviously, in this case, we will still run into the same problem here, but that is easily resolved. And you save it, you continue the conversion process. We get all those nasty messages here because I didn't process the DTDs completely, but now you have your valid DITA topic again. And once you have all the topics converted to DITA, of course, you're free to move them elsewhere, to move them into a CCMS or whatever you want to do with it. The whole point about this presentation and about the conversion pipeline that I've built is that you want to do this one at a time. And once you have everything converted, then you're free to move wherever you want to move with your DITA content. So that's it for the demo. Let's return to the presentation, the last presentation slides. Okay, I hope you have seen enough to make you interested in this whole process. As I mentioned in the beginning, before the conversion, smart conversion is really about bringing your legacy documentation into a state that you want to have it in, which is an XML document. And in our case, that will be a DITA document. And with this one-by-one approach of conversion and making sure that you can still publish while you're doing the conversion, you might actually get that tiny bit of, tiny bit ahead that you need to win the race, as we have all seen in the past Formula One season. I'm Jan Graat for Smart Information Design. This is the website address where you can connect with me. And that's all from me for now. So let's move to the question and answers. Thank you very much.